TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations.
Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Jerusalem relays a stern warning to the Islamist Hamas via Egyptian and Qatari mediation. If the security situation deteriorates, Israel will launch an aggressive military campaign against the Gaza Strip. IDF Northern Command Commander Major General Gordin stresses the vital need to maintain a high level of preparedness to contend with accumulating threats to Israel's north. Ahead of an IAEA Board of Governors meeting scheduled for next week, Director General Rafael Grossi voices dismay over Iran's refusal to work with the agency over its nuclear program. Security has relayed a number of clear warnings to Gaza. If security stability deteriorates along Israel's southern sector, Hamas will bear full responsibility for the consequences. A senior security official acknowledged to TV7 that the Israeli Security Cabinet had already prepared for contingency plans based on the security establishment's recommendation that would entail an aggressive military operation. It would also send a clear message to Hezbollah and its masters in Tehran. The Israeli threat was made ahead of a highly sensitive period in which a number of high holidays are commemorated, the first of which is marked on September 15th, namely Rosh Hashanah, which celebrates the New Year of the Hebrew calendar. Meanwhile, Israel's security establishment unrelentingly persists in its war on terror. IDF, ISA, and Border Police Special Operations Forces conducted extensive counter-terror activity throughout the West Bank districts of Judea and Samaria overnight, during the course of which a total of 18 suspected terror operatives were apprehended. The IDF spokesperson's unit confirmed in a statement that a senior Palestinian Islamic Jihad operative, namely Said al-Nahala, was among those apprehended. Moreover, during operational activity in the Dahaisha refugee camp, militants opened fire and hurled improvised explosive devices and Molotov cocktails toward Israeli troops, who responded with live fire and riot dispersal means. Regrettably, one border police officer sustained light injuries. After receiving first medical care at the scene, she was then evacuated to a hospital for further treatment. Amid an evident rise in near-daily acts of nationalistically motivated terror attacks, Israeli Minister Amichai Shikli acknowledged that any executed act of terror was essentially a failure of the incumbent government. During a Q&A session at the Governance and Personal Security Conference in Israel, it was sponsored by the domestic Israel Hayom Daily, Minister Shikli nonetheless highlighted that the incumbent government provided a decisive response to terror by developing Israel's presence in Judea and Samaria.
Every executed terror attack is a failure. Not merely failure, but a crushing failure. This is first and foremost, and no one is evading responsibility from these failures, no matter how big or small. The current reality is intolerable. I think that the relative advantage that this government has, as opposed to the previous government, is actually on the settlement front, where we provide an intensive response within context of the scope of settlements development in Judea and Samaria, both in infrastructure and motorways.
Minister Shikli went on to stress that today's greatest challenge in Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley is rooted in the magnitude of weaponry which flood into the highly volatile territories. These weapons are apparently smuggled into Israel via its eastern border by Jordanian criminal rings which are directed by the Islamic Republic of Iran and its Lebanese proxy Hezbollah.
We have a problem when it comes to the barrier along the border with Jordan. There are large quantities of weaponry that enter from Jordan's territory, which are very dramatic quantities. We're talking about explosives, rifles, pistols, and ammunition. The Iranians and Hezbollah are involved in these smuggling efforts. The fact that there is no organized barrier, similar to the one which we have along Egypt's border, is creating a challenge. The territories are flooded with weaponry. Therefore, any civilian who has motivation to attain illegal weaponry is very high, particularly those with motivation to perpetrate acts of terror. Therefore, it is likely that there is no way to evade larger scale and more aggressive operations to alter the foundational reality of the situation.
Turning to Israel's north, where the IDF Northern Command held a special ceremony marking 50 years since the bloody Yom Kippur War of 1973. Addressing those in attendance, who included orphans, widows, and veterans of the war, which claimed the lives of almost 2,800 IDF troops, Northern Command Commander Major General Gordin highlighted the spirit of sacrifice of the soldiers who fought with utmost bravery in defense of the Jewish state. Moreover, General Gordin stressed the factor of surprise which caught Jerusalem's leadership off guard at the start of the Yom Kippur War, further underscoring the vital need to remain vigilant in the face of accumulating threats along Israel's northern sector.
Challenges on the northern arena are many and continually changing in rapid pace. Hezbollah, which arms itself with an arsenal of precision-guided munitions and threatens us near our border. Iran, which deepens its grip and makes every effort to destabilize our state security, that of our citizens and residents. Also domestically, the discussion that deepens the rift is amplifying, which threatens to separate and differentiate. In this reality, we must continue to stand guard together around the clock, to protect our borders day and night, to execute bold operations deep behind enemy lines, and to stand ready, willing, and beyond everything else united, with competent troops and determined commanders, both regulars and reserves, that in preparations and on the day of order will rise above all disputes and will stand united in defense of our nation and country. We must do everything in our power to ensure that the IDF in general, and the Northern Command in particular, will remain informed, sharpened, and ready for war more than ever.
It is important to know that while Israel prepares for any scenario on its northern front amid unrelenting efforts by Iran and its proxies to further entrench militarily in Syria, Lebanon, and elsewhere, the Islamic Republic continues to grow its stock of uranium, enriched up to 60% purity, which is close to weapons-grade material. According to a report published by the International Atomic Energy Agency, which has been obtained by TV7, it alludes to the fact that Iran continues to obstruct IAEA investigations into particles that were uncovered in undeclared locations in Iran, which essentially is in breach of Tehran's NPT commitments. The report states that the agency's Director General, Rafael Grossi, regrets that there has been no progress in resolving the outstanding safeguards issues in this reporting period, alongside regret that no further progress that has been made in implementing the activities that were agreed upon by Iran and the IAEA, as well as Iran's refusal to agree to the agency's request to install additional cameras aimed at enhancing the agency's ability to credibly verify the Ayatollah regime's cynical claims that its nuclear program are merely for civilian needs. However, when U.S. State Department Deputy Spokesman Vedant Patel was asked to respond to the contents of the IAEA reports, he highlighted that Iran's production of uranium enriched up to 60% has no credible peaceful purpose.
So first, we've seen those press reports about the rate of accumulation of uranium enriched up to 60%, but not going to comment on an IAEA report that has not been made public yet. I will also note, as you've heard us say before, that we've been clear that Iran's production of uranium enriched up to 60% has no credible peaceful purpose, and no other country in the world today utilizes uranium enriched to 60% for the purposes of its claim. I have no other updates on discussions or talks on the nuclear issue with the Iranian regime.
Patel was further asked about the status of 5 American hostages, which Iran agreed to release in exchange for the U.S. unfreezing of roughly $6 billion of sanctioned money.
This is an ongoing process. The move to house arrest, of course, is a positive step, but we're going to continue to work and do everything we can, and won't rest until the individuals are back in the United States, reunited with their families.
While the United States is working to extricate its 5 citizens from the Islamic Republic, the Kingdom of Sweden, in coordination with the European Union, has been working to secure the release of its own Swedish national, who's been detained by the Ayatollah regime for the last 500 days, despite serving in Iran at the behest of the European Union. The revelation of this illegal arrest of Johan Flodderus drew scathing criticism of the European Union proper, which repeatedly claimed that Swedish authorities bore sole responsibility for the release of the EU official.
Does the Commission consider it has a duty of care to this national of Sweden, who was an EU official who had previously traveled to Iran on official EU business? Or does the Commission believe that the only people responsible to support this person and get him out of Iran are the Swedish authorities?
As we said in our initial response to you, and I will repeat it again, we are aware about this case of the Swedish national in Iranian prison, and we are working very closely, and we are coordinating and consulting very closely with Sweden, which is the country which has the primarily consular responsibility for its citizens anywhere in the world, so also in this case in Iranian prison.
Amid rising criticism of the EU's complacent role, the Commission's High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Josep Borrell, publicly pledged to persist in efforts to secure Flodderus's release. Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I would like to point out that TV7 Israel is a donation-based ministry. Therefore, if you're blessed by our productions and would like to help support keeping TV7 Israel on air, please consider making a financial donation. You can do so by visiting our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Separately, I would like to encourage you to pray for our persecuted brothers and sisters worldwide, as well as for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hassan wishing you an Erev Mevorach. God willing, we'll see you again tomorrow at the same time.